G'day folks, here are some memorable gig shenanigans that I witnessed over the years. G'day folks, Jeff here, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing a video, a different sort of video this one I think. This will be more recollections of me of weird and wonderful things that I've seen at gigs basically. So this is memorable shenanigans, so not necessarily the best gig that I've ever been to. I mean, some of these sort of were. You know, I might actually do a separate video on some of my favourite gigs of all time. You know, there'd be like Pungent Stench when they first toured Australia, or, you know, Skinless at MDF one year was amazing. Bolt Thrower in Portland was my top 5 gig. The list goes on. Morbid Angel, General Surgery, Regurgitate. Yeah, that would be a long video if I started naming all the kick-ass bands that I've seen over the years. No, this one's more just kind of memorable incidents. Some good, some bad, but all stuck with me, that's for sure. I'm not going to really count sort of, you know, huge mosh pits like they had at, you know, MDF and Metal for the Brain and, or, you know, Wall of Death sort of stuff, because that's regular sort of stuff. I mean, if I saw someone die in a Wall of Death, then yeah, that'd probably count for this. But no, this is more just specific incidents that just stuck in my head somehow. I've been to many gigs over the years, so there's a long list to draw from on this, believe me. But and some of these memories might be a tad hazy. So yeah, most of the earlier ones are Canberra related because this is where I grew up. So any Canberra people, if you want to correct me, feel free to in the comments. And yeah, anyone else, if you've got some amusing shenanigans, feel free to tell the story below in the comments. I'd love to hear it. It's one of those things that just makes gigs that bit more special. I'm a huge fan of gigs. I still go to a decent amount, although no longer going to see Pentagram in a couple of weeks because yeah, they just got sort of cancelled. I think people realised what a turd Bobby is. And yeah, they're not coming. But yeah, I still love going to gigs, even though I'm getting a bit old and rickety and not really enjoying standing up for like 6 hours straight. So, but I love that experience. It's if you don't go to many gigs, you should. It's so much better, especially for metal. You know, if you're going to see classical stuff, yeah, maybe that's good if the acoustics are right and everything, you know. I mean, a lot of pop bands are just sort of semi-recorded these days anyway. They're playing to a backing track, all that. But metal stuff, generally, it's, yeah, spot on, all live, and just in your face. I don't know, it enhances a lot of bands for me way much more than their studio stuff. There's a heap of bands I only listen to their live stuff over specific studio albums just because it's just got that much more energy. I think that's one of the key things. But anyway, let's get into it. So I've split this up into categories, basically, so it's fairly obvious as I go through it. So first one will be injuries/violence. So I've got to start with the quality ones. So yeah, the first one I'll mention is, I can't remember the exact gig, but I remember the incident, yeah, like it was yesterday. This is back in probably early 90s, late 80s, sort of, most likely early 90s, I'd say. There was a venue in Canberra called the Civic Youth Cafe where a ton of kick-ass bands played. I remember the glory days of, and I'll put flyers up for these because I couldn't be bothered getting them out of the box over there. So no props for this one, no shiny records to hold up. But I'll put pictures of whatever flyers I could find. So yeah, a lot of the gigs in the early days was, you know, a lot of young guys just getting into metal, you know, mostly Metallica and Slayer sort of fans. But yeah, if there was something on, they would go. And Civic Youth Cafe was all ages, so you know the youth could go as well. And yeah, one gig there was a legendary guy in the Canberra metal scene back then, a guy called Scott Foster, who was, I don't know, I reckon he'd be a couple of years older than me probably. He was a biggish guy, like, you know, quite well-built, muscly sort of thing, long dreadlocks. He was a master stage diver, and this is the days where there was like, you know, 4 rows of headbangers right at the front of the stage, people stage diving from each side over and over, and a big mosh pit behind you. It was berserker days. And yeah, this is a gig of like 200 people sort of thing, everyone just going berserk. And yeah, he used to get the biggest air. And yeah, I remember 2 incidences of him. First one, he missed everyone once and obviously landed sort of face down because he did proper stage dives where none of this bloody crowd surfing wankiness. He dove and that was good. And yeah, I think he must have landed there because yeah, he got up holding his arm like, oh, just ran out of the building. Next gig, he's got a cast on. So There was a bit of snappage going on there, I think. So that was pretty cool. As I said, no idea what gig it was. Probably a granny killing frenzy or something or other. Who knows? But and the other one for him was the at Metal for the Brain, which is like a bigger festival in Canberra. They it's like 1,000 people or decent sized venue, big ass PA, and so yeah, they had a high PA, and he used to semi-regularly scale to the top of that and stage dive. And so the stage would have been at least 5 foot, and I reckon the PA sitting on top of that would have been 6 or 7 foot. So we're talking like 12-foot dives, and this guy wasn't small. I'd hate to think if he landed on, small, slight person, he'd probably kill him, but somehow he survived. So yeah, that was always impressive. He did it several years running, I think. And another amusing memory of him, I remember him and a mate getting a little too drunk at a Metal for the Brain once at ANU, and they both just fell asleep in the courtyard area where, hundreds of people were hanging around, and they just fell asleep in the Tanbark area, and people are all like leaving rubbish on them. I don't think anyone drew on him, but he was a bit scary looking, and that's the thing, he looked scary, but I ran into him years later in, I used to do a radio show with a couple of mates, Jonesy and Mark, and we did a radio show on 2XX, and yeah, Scott Foster came in one night. We were always on from 10 till 12 or something or other, and he came in one night. He used to do I don't even know what his show was. He was just dropping off a pre-record that he'd done, and yeah, just sat in and listened to appreciated the old Deicide we played and stuff. Yeah, he was the nicest guy in the world. So as a youth, I was like, he's a bit scary looking, but no, metalheads are nice. So yeah, that's the first one. Broken arm, huge stage dives, good stuff. Speaking of stage dives, I do remember one at the same venue at ANU. I don't think it wasn't a Metal for the Brain. It was probably a spring thing or something or other. Band called Allthroth. And my memory was a little hazy, so I reached out to Josh, who was the guitarist of that quality band, and asked him. Basically, their singer, Lachlan, stage dived. I always thought it was like mid-set, but apparently it was like minutes after they'd finished, so not the time to be stage diving. And yeah, just sconed his head and pissed out blood, and it was like, not good. So I haven't seen that many other bad injuries, I don't think, from stage diving. So, but as far as injuries go, I back in 1993 and 94, me and my mate Jesse went over to America for a couple of months. He had family over there, so we mostly stayed with them. Just fart-assed around, went to gigs, had a grand old time. One of the gigs we went to was in Atlanta. We went and saw Sacred Reich, and they played with Nihilist, like the the Atlanta, Georgia Nihilist, not the good one from Sweden, unfortunately. And Crowbar, a very young Crowbar, they were friggin' heavy. But yeah, Sacred Reich they were killer. Don't get me wrong, the band were great, but the crowd was berserker. There was like skinheads everywhere. Massive fights. Me and Jesse, who were both a little, we imbibed, let's put it that way. We were just like, we're not going anywhere near that sort of stuff going on. We just stood on the side of the stage, and Sacred Reich just played. And I remember watching 2 security guards on either side of the stage, walkie-talkies, like super alert, just pointing out fights and stuff. There was at least one stabbing there, because I remember seeing a skinhead guy like laid out, waiting for an ambulance, lying on the pool table, like bleeding. It's like, this is a good gig. While we were sitting in the car, enjoying ourselves, I'm pretty sure the car in front of us got stolen by someone. Some people got out and different people got in. Like 5 minutes later, I was like, maybe they lent their car, but I don't think so. So it was a dodgy sort of place, but yeah, that was... I do remember, though, that while we were, just mellowing, watching Sacred Reich, and the bass player was wandering around the stage and just looked at us and, us not trying to kill each other, and just gave us a bit of a nod. On your lads. One fight that I don't remember many fights at gigs. Like, metal gigs are usually pretty friendly. I mean, there's always the stupid argy-bargy, piss guy in the mosh running the wrong way, or, there's always those dickheads who stand on the edge of moshes. I mean, not so much anymore, but in the past they used to. Actually, I did see it pretty recently. People that stand on the edge of the mosh, and then when anyone comes in near them, they just shove the shit out of them intentionally, and it's like, what are you doing, idiots? Anyway, I do remember one fight, though, sort of fight. It was during Alchemist. They were playing at the Asylum, which is like a venue upstairs in Canberra that had some pretty killer gigs. They did play there with Bloodduster, with this charming flyer that I'll put up. That's one of my faves. But I don't think it was that gig. I think it was a different one. I did find the only other one I could find in my flyer archive was Alchemist playing the Dement Ensemble, I think. So it was probably that. But some guy like spilled I think he smashed his stubby or his glass or something or other on the stage and I think he cut Adam, the singer, a bit. And Roy, the other guitarist, just launched at this guy in a rough and tumble sort of fight. And I'm fairly certain the cops were called and they both got arrested. And then pretty sure they were chucked in the same, like, paddy wagon or something, which was like, what are you doing? But I think they made up rather rapidly. It was just one of those heat of the moment sort of things. But the only other fight I can think of was one that was a very brief fight, you could say. It was at the Terrace Bar, which is a legendary old Canberra venue. And I don't know what band it was, but there was like a couple of skinhead guys that I was standing pretty close to, and like this drunk punk sort of guy with the, you know, spiky hair in the mosh, just obviously shit-faced, stumbling around and knocked one of the skinhead dude's girlfriend. And the skinhead, the bloke, threw his drink at the punk, who just turned around like, hey, what's going on? And the skinhead just went poof, headbutt. I heard it over the band. I mean, I was only like 2 or 3 feet away, but loudest bloody, you know, connection. And the punk dude just crumbled. They obviously got escorted out rather rapidly. No idea what happened afterwards. I kind of hate to think, but yeah, that stuck with me. As far as, I remember seeing there used to be I think they're back reformed. There's a band called the Meanies. It was sort of like a punk kind of band. Pretty huge in the early 90s sort of thing, or early to mid 90s. I saw them live a few times, never really cared for them that much, but I did like seeing them because the singer Link was a maniac. Just all dreads and skinny dude and just like jumping around, rolling around on the floor. I remember 2 incidents of him. One was a gig at the same asylum as Alchemist played. And yeah, my friend Irene actually knew the band, so I think they were just sort of mucking around. But yeah, she foolishly went up front maybe to take a photo or something, and was just standing there by herself, and Link just stage dived directly onto her. I don't think he injured her or anything. I'm sure it was a laugh for him, but I was like, far out. But I do remember seeing the Meanies supporting the Beastie Boys of all bands at Selena's in Sydney, and you know, they were all right. I was there to see the Beastie Boys, who were way better, but the Meanies, and Link just running up the side of the PA, like vertically up, and then just falling on his back. He did it like a number of times, you know, falling from like 6 feet just straight onto his back or his neck. It's like, what are you doing, mate? Other than that, a couple of other violence ones I can think of is, I remember a gig at ANU in Canberra. It was a black metal band called Sanguinary Misanthropia or something or other, who weren't really my thing. I think they were supporting Symmetry Urn, I think, and yeah, they were alright, but yeah, there was not the hugest crowd. There was one guy just like taking photos of the band and stuff, and they had a female drummer, and I remember the guy he wasn't on the stage by any means. He was in the crowd, but just trying to take photos of her, and the singer just sort of he had a microphone on a big mic stand and just whacked him in the bashed him in the head. Everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing, mate? Pretty sure the bouncer had a word with them afterwards, but I don't know. I don't think the guy wanted to have a go, but it was, yeah, not the most pleasant incident. It's like, what are you doing, mate? You're on a stage. People are allowed to take photos of you, dickhead. So anyway, one legendary Canberra band for their stage performances was Four Dead, who were a kind of, I don't know, metalcore kind of band. Bloody good, really good. And their singer John was a bit of a berserker. He did multiple, you know, the old crowd charge sort of thing. But I do remember once he used to get in trouble from the PA owners by like stomping on the foldbacks and breaking mics and stuff. He wasn't popular with the sound guys in town. But yeah, I just remember one gig he just threw a beer. He didn't throw the beer. He just like threw the contents of his beer out in the crowd, and I swear I wore all of it right to the face. It's like, thanks, mate. But the last sort of injury, well, it was a sort of injury, was pretty amusing one. It was black metal gig up in Sydney at Newtown at I think it was the RSL. It was bloody horrible in there. Must have had no air conditioning, or they just thought, oh, bugger it, won't turn the air conditioning on and make the metalheads buy even more beer than they were already buying. And good, it was all black metal all day. It was a great gig, but I think it was the one and only time I saw Drowning the Light. But during Nazul, the main band or the headlining band, I think it was might have been towards the end of their set. I don't remember. Well, I think their set ended after it, but one of the guitarists, Mitch, just keeled over on stage. I think he fainted from the heat. I have a feeling like Nazul usually wore like, you know, big leather jackets and all that sort of stuff. So, and I'm pretty sure he'd already played in Drowning the Light as well. So it was probably a little parched, you could say. So yeah, he just keeled over, and I still remember Adrian, the bass player, just like slamming his bass down. He was not a happy chap, just smashed it down onto the stage. And I have a feeling that might have been the last time that Nazul actually played live. So I'm hoping it wasn't the final gig. It wasn't the greatest ending, but it was memorable, though. I'll give him that. All right, next category, and this is a shorter one, that's for sure, is barbecues, like, you know, grills. I remember two incidents of that. The first one was Sydney grind band called Volatile that were, yeah, memorable in their own right. They had a drum machine, so they used to set up a mannequin as a drummer and occasionally put like fireworks in his chest that they'd let off, and you know, he was always injured and stuff. It was amusing in itself. But yeah, they used to try and have a barbecue on stage, and had one Metal for the Brain that they played. Yeah, unsurprisingly, the venue wasn't overly keen on having a, you know, charcoal barbecue on set on inside on the stage, so they weren't allowed to actually light it. So they were just standing there and just ended up just ripping their sausages apart and throwing them at the crowd. So I got a charming cold bit of, you know, raw sausage sliding down my arm. I was like, thanks, fellas. But the one successful barbecue that I did see on stage was the VBs, legendary Canberra. Kind of, they're not really metal, they're sort of like Motorheady punk. You know, Motorhead meets like Cosmic Psycho sort of thing. They played at the Summer Nats, which is a legendary bogan gathering in Canberra, which is it's a car show basically, where everyone brings their hotted up, you know, spiffy old cars along and does burnout. There's burnout competitions and, you know, all sorts of shenanigans going on, that's for sure. And perfectly suited, the VBs got a call up to play there, so I think they did about 3 or 4 sets maybe, just in this pub there. And I didn't usually go. I'm not a big car fan, but I think it was Dave. One of them said, "Oh yeah, I got a free ticket. You want to come?" I'm like, "Sure." So I showed up. Barely saw any of the actual car stuff. Although I did see what was it? I can't remember what it's called. It's where the cars just drive around and people on the back going, yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was debauched, you could say. There's just anytime there was a woman on the car, it's like, it was like so bass. It was quite amusing. At any rate, the VBs played just in one of the venues. It was like a huge gig at, huge event at massive showgrounds in Canberra. And yeah, they were just in normal sort of pub inside. But yeah, I walk in and there's like a barbecue on stage being run by their mascot Carney, who's quite a memorable chap himself. I think I have a couple of pictures of that. I'll put them up. But basically, they had an actual functioning barbecue with this huge, just like air extractor sort of, you know, air conditioning sort of thing all the way out to the back. Don't know what that was running on, but it worked. So that they successfully had a barbecue. I was watching them hand them out to people in the crowd, and I'm sure they were like their hundreds and thousands, you know, just like small bits of like sugary things on the bread with the sausage. It's classy. But yeah, that was that gig was, I mean, they were awesome bands, so it was great to see. But it was just the best part of that, other than the barbecue, was watching the face of people just coming in for a beer, normal car heads that aren't, you know, VB's fans, are just going, what the hell's going on? The look on their faces was priceless. All right, next category is drama. So this is gigs where, you know, some shit went down of some variety. One quick one that God knows where the gig was or what it was. It was, I think it was the band Pod People, like their guitarist and original guitarist Ivan just quit on stage, walked off. It was like, the band was just like, okay. So I don't know if that stopped the gig. I think they had a second guitarist, so I think they continued for a bit, but yeah. But the better breakup one was Damaged, legendary old Melbourne or Ballarat, I think, hatecore band, like metal, grind, thrash, whatever the hell they played. Awesome band, but they had some issues with each other. They was always a very fiery sort of band. And the last time they played with their original singer, Jamie, who was, you know, very stellar voice, they tried to replace him. They had a few different ones over the years. It sort of sounded a bit like him, but not the charm whatsoever. They also had Kevin Sharp from like Brutal Truth, who was the singer for an album, which was odd. But yeah, I saw their final gig in Canberra at this venue called Mungarees, which is in Woden, I think. And it was not a pleasant gig. I'd seen them actually a couple of months before. They supported Entombed when they first toured. I saw them in Sydney, and they just, you know, they were a support band. They went on when they were told to go on, and the singer Jamie wasn't there, so they just started playing. And my mate Jesse, who was a singer in the band Codpiece, got up on stage and just started, doing random death growls over their songs just for the hell of it, because no one else was. And then I remember Steve, the singer from Manticore, just like kicked him off and sang a song properly, like growly, a lot different style than Jamie, but I think he knew the lyrics all vaguely. And then Jamie started eventually, but yeah, this gig in Canberra, he did not. They had like rafters up the top, and he was just sitting up there the whole gig. It wasn't on stage. The rest of the band were on stage playing, and he'd just like slag them off during the song or in between songs, and they just, you know, hating on him, something fierce. I could see why it was the last gig, so yeah, very acrimonious split. That was not good. That venue as well, Mungarees, I only saw one other band there, which was memorable. It wasn't really a drama, but it was the band Atari Teenage Riot, which is like a weird, I don't know what the hell they were, punky metally, but with break chord drums and God knows what was going on. I quite like them. I've still got their CDs, but they toured, I think only once, maybe Australia. At any rate, this was their tour in 2000, I think. And there was like no one there. It was so embarrassing. It was like 20, maybe 30 people there. It was a big room as well, so it was embarrassing. Yet they still did their sort of whole try and G the crowd up, because they were all, you know, super political and trying to start the riot sort of stuff, and all. It's sort of embarrassing. It was like, oh shit, there's no one here. You're not going to get much of a call response sort of thing from the crowd. So, yeah. A recent drama that I can remember was one last year that I think I was in my review of Essence Festival. There was Impetuous Ritual got a little too drunk on stage. Well, actually before they even played, I think. So they were just smashed and continued drinking on stage while smashed. And yeah. When they finished, like, their set was just noise, basically. It was fun. But the sound guy wasn't happy and cut them off at the end, because I think they'd gone over time because they started late. And so the singer, who was just smashed, was just like, sorry, just to the crowd for like about a minute or two. Very amusing. But the last drama one that I can remember, and I do sort of remember it, I didn't see the aftermath, unfortunately, was Soundwave. It was this huge festival in Australia with, you know, like Iron Maiden and Queens of the Stone Age, all those ton of bands. I went one year, actually the same day as I went to a UFC across the road, literally like 300 metres away from the venue where the Soundwave Festival was on. So I went and watched a UFC, watched Marco Hunto win, and Vanderlei Silva. Oh, it's bloody excellent. But and then, yeah, we went straight from there to Soundwave and watched, well, we were supposed to watch Slayer, but I think Tom Araya was having a heart palpitations or something, so Slayer didn't play. So that was a bit of a drama, but I did see the Melvins. They played after Rob Zombie, and Rob Zombie had gone over time, I think, and did this. And so when the Melvins came out, they kind of took the piss out of them of, I think Rob Zombie's band maybe Smasher Instruments or something, and Melvins came out and you know, just doing this slow-mo pretend smashing their instruments or something or other. And I remember reading an interview with Buzz later who was saying, yeah, we got chewed out something fierce in the street by Rob Zombie. I don't think Rob Zombie's a nice guy from every single report I've ever read. So, yeah. That was the other drama that I saw. I mean, Melvins were killer. The drama for me that day is I had some horrible gastro, so I nearly missed several fights because I was in the bathroom, as it were, during UFC. Getting Andy texting me going, Mark Hunt's on next. I'm like, oh shit. But at the actual festival, I felt so bad. I think I lay down and just listened to Kai Lesser. Thankfully, it was outdoors gig, so I could just lie on the grass. And during Melbourne's, I actually was feeling so bad. There was like a medical tent right next to the the stage, actually. It was quite handy. I mean, this is a huge festival. It was like 20, 30,000 people sort of thing. And yeah, they just gave me some electrolytes and let me lay down on a stretcher, and I didn't realise I fell asleep. And when I woke up, which I didn't realise I was waking up, I just went, oh, wow, the Melvins sound a bit weird. And it was actually, I walk out and it's like, Melvins had already finished and the next band, it was some like metalcore band were on. And it's like, that's why they don't sound like the Melvins. So somehow I drove back to Canberra from that straight away after that. Missed Iron Maiden, but oh well. All right, next up is the miscellaneous section. This is just some odds and sodsy sort of ones. One of my very early gigs was the hard-ons. This is in 1990, so I was, 17 or something, or probably not even 17 at this stage. And yeah, they played at ANU, and this was the days of just never-ending stage diving going on and on. It was ridiculous. Same with Mudhoney, I think. But hard-ons were killer, but they during that time, Ray, the bassist, used to breathe fire, like, from the stage, not at the crowd, but above the crowd. And I remember being, good front row headbanger that I was, even though it was like the hard-ons. But, and yeah, I just remember feeling the fire go over the top of me. I was like, oh shit, I better not stand up too high. So yeah, that was an incident. Another amusing one was 1993, I think. Alice in Chains toured, who I did not like. They toured with Suicidal Tendencies as a support act, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to that. So me and a lot of people were there for Suicidals. It was bloody killer. I mean, it would have been there, maybe Suicidal for Life sort of era. It was after Lights, Camera, Revolution. So they were kick-ass, bloody awesome. But during them, I remember seeing two different, distinct, huge mosh pits and one of them that I noticed was like mostly just skinhead dudes, like not nasty skins, but just, true diehard Suicidals fans. And I just remember for a while, there was like one long-haired dude standing in the middle of this huge mosh pit, like circle pit, and just this one long-haired dude just headbanging away, and then suddenly he just wasn't there. I'm like, what happened to that guy? But, and after that, I thought, I paid money, I'll stick around for a bit of Alice in Chains, and yeah, it's not my thing. They didn't sound very good, and the singer, like Lane, whatever his name is, was just like draped on this, had this weird sort of stage set of just like a big rope sort of net. I don't know what the hell it was supposed to be. Maybe it's one of their lyrics or something, and he was just sort of draped in it, whingy, and we were just like, nah, we're out. And like, I reckon half the crowd left after Suicidal. It was hilarious. So another amusing one that it was quite the incident. First time I saw Slayer was in 1995. They toured on like Divine Intervention. It was the first time they came to Australia. And I went to their Wollongong show, which was a couple of days before the Sydney one, both of which were absolutely killer. Slayer are amazing. I think Biohazard supported, and Allegiance, the Perth thrash band that I never did much for me. I think they opened. But during Biohazard, some guy got on stage and I don't know, it was a big-ish gig. I wasn't super close to the front. I only saw it a bit, but it's sort of grown legendary over the years. He had shit smeared on him, apparently. He'd smeared... I actually searched Facebook to see if anyone had ever mentioned it, because it's like 30 years ago. It's a tad vague for me. And found someone who obviously knows the guy, and it was an Australian guy that knew Biohazard. And so he just did it as a joke during Biohazard's set. And I think whoever was recounting the story, I think she was standing near like several members of Slayer who just like fled from him when he came anywhere near them. Just very wise. I do remember someone having a whinge over the mic, I think, after the set, because they had to clean the stage before Slayer came on. So yeah, that was an incident. Apparently the guy is just a surfer from North Sydney somewhere or other, and just a bit of a maniac from all reports. So good work, mate. Another amusing random miscellaneous one, and I think I've told this story before, probably in my relapse video, was Exhumed. They toured Australia in 2004 on, what is it, Anatomy is Destiny or whatever that album is. Bloody killer tour. I saw them in Canberra and then in Sydney as well, but I saw them in Sydney on a harbour cruise. I think I would have mentioned this actually in my recent harbour cruise, that Mortiferum gig. And yeah, it was this hired this small ferry, so really not a very big boat, two levels sort of thing. And yeah, just set up on there. There was like a couple of local bands. There was Syphilis and Soiled Mattress and Bludgeoner, I think. Killer bands. So yeah, I mean, it was super memorable seeing Exhumed on that and watching the crowd just sort of swaying as the boat goes over waves and stuff. The look on other yachts going past facing, 50 metalheads banging away. It was like, they're just like, what the hell? I remember the guitarist going for a wander for doing his leads out on the front deck sort of thing. But one of the other memorable bits was the band Syphilis, which is a local Sydney grind sort of band. They were pretty good. I don't know if they ever recorded anything, but and yeah, I made Andrew, the singer, had this huge broadsword, like, proper full-length sword that he was just like waving around, and this boat was not the biggest. And so I'm pretty sure my mate Ben nearly got stabbed with it. I don't know if it was actually sharp on the blade, but the point sure as shit was sharp. And yeah, I think Andrew used to play reasonably tipsy at times, so that could have been bad. So yeah, that was pretty good. Okay, next category is nudity. It's actually not that common, surprisingly, but the first incident I recall of bands being nude was an old New Zealand sort of metal, alternative metal almost, a bit sort of funky, band called Head Like a Hole. Killer band, they were great. They toured Australia multiple times. I saw them a few times on their first album, 13. Yeah, great band, but basically I think the singer they're all shirtless, but I think the singer just had like, pants or shorts on or something, as did the bass player, I think. The guitarist was totally naked, liked to wave his guitar around and wave his around. And the drummer was also naked. And I just remember him walking out in this big robe and just like dropping it. And it's like, yeah, there you go. Thanks, mate. I really did see that. I'm pretty sure that drummer went on to be in Demoniac, which was like a New Zealand, for a time, black metal band at first. Then they moved to England or France or somewhere or other. And after a couple of albums, including one that's pretty sketchy, I seem to recall. I remember reading the lyrics going, oh. After that, they turned into Dragon Force. I think Herman Lee was in Demoniac and also Dragon Force, of course. So, yeah. At any rate, Head Like a Hole, they didn't mind showing it off. And I do wonder if they were a bit inspired by, used to be this footage that was always shown on Rage, which was like a MTV sort of thing of Australia without VJs. And it was just video clips of, music video clips they'd show all night. And they always used to show this, I think it was on, I can't remember where it was recorded. Oh, it was one of Andrew Denton's shows, I think. Blah, 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 maybe. And this old kind of noise rock band, Lubricated Goat, recorded a song called In the Roar. And yeah, they played completely naked, and the guitarist lifting his guitar up all the time. And it's like, saw that clip too many times. So I'm sure that inspired people. Another of the bands that, I'm quite certain they would have seen the Lubricated Goat clip was Bloodduster. I only saw one of them naked, thankfully. It was Jason played, I'm pretty sure, a Metal for the Brain. I don't think he played the whole set naked, but I think he pulled his dax off towards the end. And this is like a all-ages gig. Classy. So kids everywhere. Probably not the most legal thing to do, but thankfully he did have a bass in the way. I'm not sure if that's when he had a clear bass as well. So, but I have seen footage of them. I think it was at an Obscene Extreme. I think it's on that Bloodduster video or DVD actually, where he's like, or maybe it's one of the Obscene Extreme DVDs. At any rate, I've witnessed it, and he's like pissing on his bass on stage while they're playing, and then like flicking that into the crowd. Oh, it's charming. I did pull him up once and say, I wonder if your kids will ever see that. And he's like, shit, I hope not. Apparently they played a gig in Sydney that I missed at, I think it was Club 77, which was in King's Cross, which is like, used to be the dodgy stripper area that's a bit dead now. But apparently it was so hot in there, they all played naked. So lucky Tony with like no instrument in front of him. Another amusing one was one in America that I went to when I was over in 2010 for a Maryland Death Fest. I went to some gigs in New York the night before or after, maybe, I can't remember which. And I went and saw PLF, what are they, Pretty Little Flower or whatever they're called, and Gride, and this a bike shop in Brooklyn. I don't know why. It was like the weirdest venue. It literally was a bike workshop where people fixed push bikes. There was no air conditioning, so it was just a sweat box of horribleness in there. And so after a while, there were like naked people in the crowd just moshing around, and then people sliding on the floor because there was so much liquid on the floor of sweat. People sliding, and naked people sliding along the floor of a workshop where, like around other people, there's like, classy. That was a great fun gig, really enjoyable, but I remember there was like this sort of courtyard out the back where everyone was hanging out, trying not to be super noisy. We had like Aussie dudes sitting there drinking their beers, and sort of door open from one of the apartments, and just this guy standing there with his like child just looking out at all us debauched punks and metalheads that are just going, just close the door quietly. That was it. So yeah, that was fun. The only good nudity I can remember was it's mostly dude nudity, which it's not my thing. So I remember the good nudity I remember was Alchemist at One Medal for the Brain for one of their songs, probably for Yoni Kunda, I'd say, or maybe Garden of Eroticism. Yeah, a couple of strippers suddenly came out and just nuded up on stage. The crowd was like, yeah! Well, all the guys in the crowd were, I remember looking at some of the women just going. So yeah, that was a good highlight. But one of the other highlights was, and this is a charming old band from Sydney with the quality band name was really going to get them far, of Cunt Butcher. They were not the world's greatest band of all time, but one of the most memorable bands. I saw them a couple of times in Sydney, but they played in Canberra twice at Basement, I think. I do actually have recordings of those, so I don't think I should put them up on Facebook. On YouTube, sorry, because they're a bit rude. They like to offend. They're obviously big G.G. Allen fans, and I knew Marcus, the main guy from the band. He was basically a band with two bassists, no guitars, and Marcus sang. I didn't actually know the other guy. And they had a drummer sometimes, or a drum machine at times as well. Played like very noisy grind that, because they had two bass players, you could barely make any of it out. So it was just like wall of noise. Not my favourite band of all time. Marcus was a lovely chap. He was known as Carcass, but he was one of the two dudes in Sydney that I know that were named Carcass, so I don't know how confusing that got. I think he was Carcass Butcher. But he was a special kind of guy. He was a lovely bloke. Unfortunately, he died, it'd be at least 10 years ago, I think. So it's way too early. It was very sad, but he was quite the character. He used to ring me up randomly out of the blue. Like we used to, trade stuff. I'd do him from Metal Shop probably. I'll message for him. He used to ring me up at work when I'm like at work trying to host a training course or something or other. And he's like, hey, no. And, chatting away about grind bands and whatnot and what, trading CDs and shit. I'm like, I'm kind of at work, mate. Sorry. But yeah, lovely guy. He was a complex kind of guy. He had some demons, that's for sure. But yeah, one of the gigs at the Basement, I can't remember if it was the same gig, but I think they had like a crucifix just made out of wood there, and he just like smashing that. But I do remember he liked smashing like stubby glasses, like pint glasses over his head. And yeah, so there's the footage I've got is just he does it at the start of the gig, and the blood's just slowly trickling down after a while. The poor bar staff are probably like, dude, now I've got to clean blood off the stage. That was, as I said, musically not the greatest. And he used to send me all this stuff. I got heaps of it. It's really not my favourite, but lovely bloke. If you were mates with him, I kind of wouldn't want to be an enemy. And actually reasonably talented. He used to play in like a what are they called? Rose Tattoo cover band. And yeah, guy could play. It's just he couldn't barely make out what the hell he was playing. So yeah, the cross smashing and blood and he was purposely trying to offend everyone in between, while talking between songs. It was hilarious. Quite an amusing chap. So yeah, he definitely stood out. He's sorely missed. As far as noisy, the next category is sort of noise in a sense. So a couple of gigs that were just ridiculously noisy. The first one was Impaled Nazarene. They toured Australia in 99. Awesome time. They played in Canberra at the Gypsy Bar, the second Gypsy, which was like this downstairs venue. That was pretty good. Usually had great sound, but for them it was just a wall of noise. All I could make out was Mika singing and the drums. And guitars were just like... Thankfully, I knew all their songs, so I was fine with that, but and all I remember is Mika's tongue just going... It's like, oh, man put on a show. That was absolute gold. But yeah, and no idea how anyone who wasn't a fan would have even worked out any parts of any of those songs. I knew them more from the vocals and the drums. I could imagine what they were playing, but one band that I went to see at like a backyard in someone's house in Watson in Canberra was Liebenden Toten or something or other. I thought they were just like a punk band, and they sort of looked like it. I thought they were, slightly crusty sort of thing. And most of it was, except the guitars were just like a static sound. And I assume it was supposed to sound like that. I've no idea. I don't have any of their CDs or anything. I mean, I think I probably went to see the support bands, but it was just one of those things to do. I lived like a couple of suburbs away, so I was like, yeah, what the hell? And it was just like, is that supposed to sound like that? Really? So I had no idea what was going on there. Another amusing one, more for the crowd reaction, was first time Mr. Bungle toured Australia. They came on the Disco Volante tour, the second album, and they played in Canberra at Uni of Canberra. Great gig, millions of people because it was, it's Mike Patton from Faith No More, and so huge crowd. And I swear, most of the set, I knew their stuff. I owned Disco Volante and the self-titled first album. I knew it quite well. I didn't recognise anything until right at the end, I think. And the crowd had, it was just all ad-libbed, I think, or just weirdos. I mean, Disco Volante is a pretty weird bloody album anyway, but I barely recognised anything until right at the end. I think they played like Quote Unquote or Travolta or whatever it's called, the first song on the first album. And the crowd were like, I know that song. Finally, something we can dance to. And I was pretty sure it was the last song. So yeah, that was a amusing one. And I think that the loudest gig I've ever been to, I foolishly missed the gig. I missed Motorhead when they played in, well, not Canberra, but in Queanbeyan, which most people say was their loudest gig they ever went to. I did see Motorhead eventually in Sydney at Luna Park, of all places, and it was pretty loud, but nothing dramatic. But the loudest gig I think I've ever been to was Swans, which is probably no surprise to anyone who's seen Swans, New York, No Way or whatever they are. I did see them in Melbourne at this weird All Tomorrow's Parties Festival or whatever it was called. I don't know. It was like them and Godspeed You Black Emperor and My Bloody Valentine and Einstein der Neubauten, who were friggin' awesome. And yeah, Swans played for like 2 hours. It was in this, I don't know, it was like a big factory aircraft hangar-y kind of building that so hot. It was in summer. It was ridiculously gross in there. And yeah, they just smashed away for several hours. But I then saw them like a year later, I think in 2014 in New York, in Brooklyn, so I was like, of course I'm going to go see Swans in Brooklyn. Why not? At the Williamsburg Music Hall or something like that. It's pretty excellent. It was really good. But yeah, again, they played for 2.25 hours or something or other. And thankfully, I think I had a seat for that at least. So that was doable because they have long, long songs and very loud. But I'd purposely taken earplugs along, and not the greatest ones, but they're in my backpack, and I'm just digging when the band are about to start. I have no idea who the support band were, if there was one, but when they're starting, I'm like, shit, that's loud. Digging around in my bag, couldn't find them, so I just went, looks like I'm getting deafened tonight. So it was very loud, and then as soon as I got back to my hotel, I was like, there they are in the bottom of the bag. Thanks, great. All right, next category is stage shenanigans. So there's only a couple in this. First one was Fugazi. They toured Australia in, early 90s sometime. Played the Civic Youth Cafe, and I think the stage in there wasn't a permanent one by any means. It was sort of like sections sort of smashed together, and all I remember is them just whinging their asses off about the stage coming apart on them, which did kind of look like a war, so it's possibly a fair whinge, but also whinging about people moshing, and it's like, dudes, you're playing like friggin' punk. What do you think people are going to bloody do? So yeah, forever after that, they're so whiny, and I already hated them because on Rage, like the show, the video clip show that I mentioned before. They always used to show this documentary of them, and it was just like them whinging us, and then a bit of live stuff, which was all right. I mean, musically, they're not the worst band in the world, but because they were so whingy, I always already had this sort of, they're going to be whingy, and they were whingy, so I didn't bother seeing them the next time they toured, I don't think. The only other stage one I can remember was actually at this gig, Witch Skull. They was a Canberra sort of stoner rocky, groovy kind of band, bloody excellent band. And they played at the White Eagle, which is in O'Connor. Great venue, but all I remember watching it is they had this huge drum riser. I don't know what he was sitting on, and Joel is like the drummer from Armored Angel as well. He's not a tapper; he's a thumper of drums. I just remember seeing the table every time he did like double bass or anything really. It's like wobbling. I'm like, oh Jesus! I was just waiting for it to collapse. Thankfully, he never did. But yeah, that was on edge for that one. I think that might have been first gig after maybe when COVID restrictions were lifted and you're allowed to actually. Maybe that was a different Witch Skull gig, and the restrictions were lifted at like midnight of that night, where you weren't supposed to stand up watching a band. Everyone had to sit down, and I think security weren't exactly enforcing it. Several hours before midnight, while I was still playing, there's people just like, let's have a dance finally. Next category is outfits. So either the band or the crowd. First one was legendary old band from Canberra called Gorp Crusher. My very good mate Andy is the singer, and various members of like Alchemist and Precursor and shitloads of different bands playing deathy thrashy sort of stuff. Great band. They're killer music, but they're a muck around sort of band. And every gig they played in weird wacky outfits. I put a few pictures of them up there. Probably doesn't look that good to anyone who wasn't there, but if you were there, they were just so much fun. Crowd just going berserk, and he was a great front man, and they were hilarious. But one of the better Canberra gigs that I remember was, I think it was actually a birthday gig, so I don't know if it was even available for the public, if you know what I mean. I think it was Brad from Pod Peoples. It was probably his 30th maybe or something. I have no idea. It was at the boardroom in Belconnen, and it was a dress-up party, so that's where the picture of on my thumbnail of, and I'm the guy as the executioner. So I just went to a costume store and hired that for the night. Thankfully, didn't spill too much beer or rum on it or something. And as you can see from that picture, what's Andy, a Pope or something? Sasha is the Clockwork Orange, and Carly is the sexy nurse. And I think Dowse is in the background as like a ring wraith, and I'd no idea who he was. He had this like wraith outfit, totally covered, and refused to show his face for ages. I'm talking to him going, I recognize that voice. But it was just hilarious. Like most of the crowd were in, fancy dress. I assume Log played, or I can't even remember who played, but just seeing the crowd, casual Canberra circle mosh in weird outfits. See a ring wraith moshing in the crowd. It was bloody awesome. But the main outfit band that I've seen over the years is Portal, of course. I've seen them over varying times. Unfortunately, I never saw the Clock era of Portal, like the Ultra would have been that tour where he had, I'll put a picture of it up, but he had a clock on his head. It's pretty legendary. So I saw him with before and after that, of course. Not sure what he's got at the moment, but I'm actually going to see them in a couple of weeks with Bowser in Sydney. So looking forward to that. They always brought the fun, and the more memorable gig for Portal in general, I think, was I saw him play with Gorguts in New York when they actually came over for MDF, and weirdly Blackie from Voivod did the sound. He was doing the sound engineering for Gorguts for some reason. It's like, okay. But Portal were memorable because it was mostly dark, but occasionally there'd be like, it wasn't the biggest venue, it was sold out in bloody no time. A couple of Aussie dudes couldn't even get in. What was it? I can't remember what it's called. At any rate, Portal, it was mostly dark for them, and they got like hangman outfits, and I can't remember what the curator had back then. I think it was the two-faced can't even remember the bloody name. And he had the tentacle fingers, and or was it just gloves? I don't know. Either way, because it was pretty much totally dark for their set. Occasionally there'd be flash, and you just see the curator stand there. It was very effective, and it was actually the best sounding portal I've ever seen. It was friggin' killer. So I'm looking forward to seeing them again. It's been a number of years, so that'll be good. So I'm going to round this out. Some of the gigs that I'll go through the missed ones first. There's a batch of legendary. I never saw Sadistic Execution in their heyday. I saw them once at this stupid awards show where they were great, but it was, I don't know, a little too late. The crowd, the rest of the gig was awful, so the crowd were not like really into. I mean, they were into Sat X, of course, but from what I've seen of old footage, old gigs were just berserker craziness. So yeah, I'm sad I missed that. I never saw Undernism or The Kill with Neil singing for him. I think he used to do like, barbed wire, WWF sort of smashing things and smashing light globes on himself and bleeding all everywhere and stuff. So sad I missed that. I never saw Kutabare or Kutabare or whatever they're supposed to be with Damon Bloodstorm from Bestial Warlust singing for him. There's a legendary photo of him covered in like glad wrap and fake blood. It's like, okay, with a durry hanging out. It's beautiful. There was a legendary DRI gig in Canberra where the skinheads Nazi skins were being wankers and fighting everyone. This is, crossover tour, so I was a little young for this. And DRI just stopped and went, all right, we're not playing until you get rid of those skinheads. So everyone just, this huge brawl to get rid of the skinheads. So I'm sad I missed that. And it's probably a good thing in some ways. And the only other one was Iron Maiden. They played in Canberra on the, Live After Death tour. So Power Slave tour. And apparently the crowd just ripped out the seats everywhere. And I don't think there was a riot or anything. There was no metal gigs after there for like 30 years or something. So, yeah, that didn't go too well. But I'll round this out with fun shenanigans that I remember from Maryland Death Fest. I went to about 7 of those or something or other. So, yeah, there were some good times. One of the highlights always was the party brigade. It was like a group of people, including a friend of mine, Vanessa, who they would organise like glow sticks and like blow up animals that they'd throw in the crowd, and just fun, stupid hijinks that you shouldn't really see at a metal show. They did it more for the fun bands like Birdflesh. Every time they played, crowd just glow sticks everywhere, and a lot of the grindy sort of fun bands like Last Days of Humanity were just coated in glow sticks and all sorts of shenanigans going on. So it's always fun seeing someone running around the mosh with like a blow up flamingo and all sorts of stupid shit. It was awesome. I think actually there's footage on my Mortician video that I posted a long time ago that I recorded of, was it them or was it, maybe it was, no, I think it actually was Devourment. There was like a blow up shark that everyone's just like riding around the crowd. It was hilarious. So those were good. One of the more memorable sets was Neurosis. They played one year and it was delayed for a while. They were the headliner, I think, because it was just bucketing rain. There was a huge storm going on. Apparently there was like water on the stage, so the keyboardist might have been electrocuted and stuff. Eventually they stopped, but it was still big. I mean, eventually the rain stopped and they cleaned it up enough, but yeah, it was just very dramatic sort of setting behind them, and they were like fired up. One amusing incident I remember from one of the outdoor stages was the band Mgła, like MGLA, or however you pronounce that, Polish black metal or whatever they are, playing just in full daylight and in their like hoods and leather jackets in like 30-something degree heat of Maryland. It was hot. So I had to think how they bloody ended up. I do remember Nazul one year playing in the heat as well. It's always in summer. It's bloody boiling. And the singer in Nazul had this massive long leather coat on. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? One thing that used to always piss me off at those shows was crowd interactions on stage. There was, what was it, Necros Christos. There was this woman on the side of the stage, just little dancing around, like as if they invited her up, and you could see them sort of looking at her going, what are you doing? Up there for like half the set sort of thing, and Me and my mate's taking the absolute piss out of her. I was actually at the gig when Watain, I think it was like Harold, the old bass player from TRI, was like moshing on the side of the stage because TRI was playing, a couple of bands later on the same stage as Watain. And I did actually see a bit of footage. He sort of, sort of looked like he was mocking him a bit, and veers out on stage, and they're just like laying into him. I think I was there, but I don't remember that, so it probably doesn't really count. I did see though Infest, the sort of hardcore, whatever, the power violence sort of band. Their crowd were already pretty berserk. They were in the sound stage, which is always like, stage diving's allowed and everything. But this one guy was on the stage just like charging the singer, and the singer's like a unit, been to prison, and it's like, you really want to do this? And I think he sort of shoved him and then was looking like he was about to charge, and the singer's just like, you really want to do this, mate? I think he got talked out of it, thankfully. But yeah, I just remember rubbish bins flying everywhere in the crowd, and it was, an eventful set. One of the more eventful ones was the Germans in 2007. It was the first year I went, and I was super keen to see them. They were great. Nunhor Commando 666 and Gut, so two German grind bands that share band members really. Nunhor played first, and it was like two women in like skimpy outfits on stage, like tying up the singer and spanking him, and all sorts of hijinks going on there. It got the crowd's attention, that's for sure. But then during Gut, I think they were on there as well, but also like a couple of like hangers-on were on stage with beers. It was like Roy from Necroharmonic and Gore-Tex, whatever that rap dude's name is. And they were just sort of getting, it was very messy, you could say. And Gut were killer, but after a while, I think one of the security guards tried to push them off. There was a bit of argy-bargy, and which is never going to go the way of the punters. It's always going to go with the security guard. So Roy and co were escorted off the stage. There was a bit of a pause, and then Gut just played the proper set with no other hangers on, and it was killer. It was great. I missed a couple of years ago, I think there was an incident during autopsy of, I think like it was an outdoor one, and there was like, guy lying on the ground while a woman with no underpants on sat on his face. Let's just put it that way. I missed that. I also missed Gronabard when they played. It's like a French grind band. They no doubt were naked for that. I would not be surprised. One thing, they're always, I've seen footage of them, it was gold. But one of the other highlights was Brad from Internal Rot and many Super Fun Happy Slide and supplier of a lot of my CDs. He was very loose one year, let's just put it that way. A few too many drinks or something else, who knows. And he did two streaks. I think one was during The Kill, maybe. The one was during Doubled Over, and he was like, which is a two-piece band playing on the massive stage. They were filling in for like, who was that? I can't remember. Lockup maybe or something, who'd pulled out. So they just got, guys are here, yeah, they'll play, why not? And yeah, he just sort of like, I think he was using a broom, just like like hobby horse across the stage naked, and the crowd's like, and there's this beautiful bit where he's just like runs off and then just like wipes himself out on something backstage, and apparently I think Robbie from The Kill went to great lengths to stop the security guards beating the shit out of Brad, because also an all-ages gig where the nudity is not really encouraged, so yeah. It was a highlight for me, though. It was well worth seeing. So, yeah, it's a good long ramble about various gigs that I've been to over the years. So, there's probably plenty more So, yeah, if you know me and went to any gigs with me with other quality stories, feel free to put them in the comments. Thankfully, there's not too many of me. Actually, there was one drunken one. I remember a gig at the Rock Ape where I had a few too many super bourbons that were essentially a glass like this with about 2 or 3 shots of bourbon and lots of Coke in it that went down a little too smoothly, and I thankfully made it outside and just fell asleep or I think I spewed and then fell asleep in this garden bed out the front of the venue, and all I remember is waking up and the gig's over and everyone's filing past having a good laugh at me. Then I got a taxi home and managed to spew in my Napalm Death long sleeve on the way home, but thankfully didn't hit the taxi, so he was not happy though. But yeah, fun night. At any rate, I hope you enjoyed this rather lengthy, rambly trip down memory lane. If you've got any amusing gigs that you want to talk about in the comments, feel free. I love reading stupid shenanigans that occurred. So anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Cheers.